Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to set up the new way of Hackintosh. So the new way, if you don't know what it is, basically you use Proxmox, which is a type 1 hypervisor. So if I pull up the Proxmox website, basically it's a virtualization platform. So the word virtualization usually comes as sort of a negative to the Hackintosh world, but promise you it doesn't affect performance at all. So today I'm going to show you how to set up Proxmox, install it, set up your Hackintosh Monterey VM, and how to GPU pass through to that. So without further ado, let's get into it. So to set up Proxmox, you're going to need two things: a Proxmox ISO and Baleena Etcher, which is an imaging tool. So to get the Proxmox ISO, navigate to proxmox.com and go to the download section. It's pretty simple. And then the download, we want Proxmox virtual environment. And then we want an ISO image, which is a virtual disk image. So back in the olden days when you used to get an operating system, you used to get it on a disk. An ISO is a virtual version of that. So you just want to click download on the 7.3 ISO installer, and a menu will pop up asking you where to save it. Once you've done that, you should see that it starts downloading. Now the servers are really slow. I usually get about 130 megabits per second, but as you can see it's not that good, so I'm gonna wait for that. So what I do to download things a bit quicker is download it using free download manager. This speeds up a lot, so you can see that it's already counting up speed, but you can see it's not that great. Also, you can download it through a torrent, which sometimes can be faster too. There's many different ways of downloading Proxmox, but if you have a torrenting server, then I strongly recommend using a torrent because it uses peer-to-peer connections, which makes the download quite quick. You can see I'm getting over 70 megabits per second and counting up. So, whilst it's downloading, I thought I'd explain to you what Proxmox is. So it's a virtualization platform, as I said before, but it's got a lot of advantages to other solutions like VMware ESXi, Citrix, Zen Server, and VirtualBox. So VirtualBox is a Type 2, which means it runs on top of an already existing operating system. Many people get Proxmox confused as a Type 2 because it does run over the top of Debian, but it is classified as a Type 1 hypervisor because the Debian version is really light and it doesn't have any functionality. So if you're running something like VirtualBox, it's very not recommended for this method because you're running it on top of your current Windows installation. So by running it as a Type 1, you're taking full advantage of your hardware, and you can use virtualization for many different things. Like I edit this video on a virtualized virtual machine running Windows 11 and Premiere Pro, and it fully works at full speed. So you can see that the Proxmox installation is now done. Now we need a tool called Baleena Etcher, so let's download that. So you can see we're back on Chrome, and now we're just going to search for Baleena Etcher. So it's baleena.io/etcher, and then you want to click download Etcher. And then it will ask what operating system, so I'm on Windows 64-bit, so I want to click download and save it to a place where you know where it is, and you can see it will download. My Google Chrome sometimes has issues where I don't get great download speeds. I'm not sure why that is. If you would like to leave a comment on why it is, please do, because it does bug me sometimes. But once we've got Baleena Etcher installed, we're going to now prepare our USB drive. So you can see I've installed and opened Baleena Etcher. The installation process is pretty simple, but we want to click the flash from file function and we want to select our Proxmox ISO. So you can see I've selected it. It's the 7.3-1 ISO file, and we want to select a target. Now you need a USB for this, so I'm going to insert one of mine now. So I've plugged mine in, so if I click select target, you can see the SanDisk Cruiser Glide 32GB USB. You need a 4GB or greater USB drive for this installation, but all we're going to do is click flash. You will get a user account control for CMD, just click yes. Then the flashing process could take quite a while, so we're going to wait for that. So mine's successfully flashed, but I'm not going to be doing it this way because I already have mine up and running. So I'm going to be actually using my virtualization server that I already have to do this, but do not get confused. I'm just running it in a virtual machine. So don't be alarmed by this step. I'm actually using a Proxmox virtual machine to install Proxmox on, just to show you how the installation process works. So don't be alarmed with this. This is not what you need to do. What you would do is access your boot options menu and boot from the Proxmox USB that you created. This is because I'm running it in a virtual machine. But all the steps upcoming once the installer is loaded will be the same for you. So let's wait for it. So a few moments later you should be greeted with the EULA. So have a good read through that. I already have plenty of time, so I'm just going to click agree. Then you want to select your hard disk. I recommend installing it on a solid state drive, and I also recommend you having more than one hard disk medium. So I've got a 120 gig virtual hard disk, remembering that I'm running this in a virtual machine. Then select your country and your time zone and also your keyboard layout. Then set a root password, so I'm going to set one really quick. And then set an email too, whilst you go through the setup. Then give it a host name, so you can call this PVE Hackintosh. .local. And then that's the static IP address. You can change that if you want. I do recommend changing your DNS server. If we click on next, it'll walk you through what you've set. Just want to click install. Now while we install it, I just thought I'd tell you that if you do need any help setting up the new way, because I know it is not easy for newcomers that did it the old way, I would say it is much easier once you get it up and running. But if you do need any help, there's contact me pages down below. So if you want to contact me about it, please do. So it's going to create the logical volumes and install all the stuff that it needs. So I'm just going to wait for that now. Also for this method we are going to be using OpenCore, so all the functionalities and benefits that you do have with OpenCore you can use on this build too. But this build I would say is much better because you get features such as snapshotting, which we will go through in this video and we will actually use it, and it could be beneficial to lots of people. It certainly has been for me. That has for example changed my SMBIOS and realised that it doesn't work, so then I can restore from snapshot and get back to normal. I know that I've received comments saying who would overwrite the SMBIOS, who would change the EFI file, but lots of people do and they make mistakes. So it's better just be safe than sorry, rather than just plugging in your USB and having to reinstall the OpenCore bootloader again. So I think it's much better in this method. Anyway, let's wait for the install to finish. Also, just to add, a lot of the server users do ask whether you can run ZFS. Yes, you can. You can run ZFS pool, so you can do RAID Z1 and have redundancy. And also, I have a backup straight to my network attached storage of all my crucial virtual machines, which I do use in my lab, which I will show you later in the video. Anyway, it's doing the last step now, and we should be greeted with the reboot screen. So let's wait for that. So you can see it's asking us to reboot, just click reboot, or wait for the countdown, whichever you feel like doing. Then it will ask to remove your installation medium, so make sure you do that. Now the next step for you would be accessing the IP address of the Proxmox server, which will appear when it boots up. But I'm not going to be using this virtual machine, I am obviously just showing you how to install Proxmox, but the steps after this will be the same for you. So at some point you will be greeted with a screen like this that tells you the IP address. So I'm going to back out of this now and go to my actual Proxmox portal, which I will cut to now. So you can see that I've been just doing it in a Proxmox virtual machine, but do not get confused, you would do it as though it was bare metal. So you'd access the new Proxmox URL, put in the https:// then your IP address :8006. You would then reach a page that looks like this. You want to then enter your username and password, which I will do now. Now we can get on to actually creating our installation. So to do this, all I want to do is click on our Proxmox node, and you can see we have a overview of what's happening. Now I'm using my currently using a workstation to record this video that has obviously some recording software on it. So that just shows how powerful the Proxmox installation can be. Obviously it's struggling right now because it is recording a video on a GT630. So let's go on to creating the Proxmox VM. So to create the VM, you're going to need 2 ISO images. So I will leave links to the description below. You can see that I've got a lot of ISO images, but we're going to be doing Monterey today. So you're going to need the OpenCore V19 ISO, which will be linked in the description in my blog post, and you're also going to need the macOS Monterey installation medium 2, which can be easily obtained from the links below. It is better to download them as torrents, so if you don't know how to download them as torrents, you head to Transmission and download the Windows installation and paste the torrent file in there. But in case you're a dummy, you should know how to do that. Anyway, let's go to creating the VM. So to do that is pretty simple. Click Create VM at the top right, and we're going to give it a name. So we're going to call it Hackintosh, the new way, Monterey. And we're going to do the VM ID as 1000, just for later reference. I'm going to also put this into a resource pool, but you don't need to. Then we're just going to click on OS. Also, this startup boot is quite handy if you're just using Hackintosh for this installation, because it will power on as soon as you turn on the Proxmox host. But anyway, I'm going to skip through that. So we go on to OS. Now, you're going to need to be very, very, very cautious with what you're doing here, because follow the exact steps. So first, I'm going to mount the OpenCore 19 ISO first. I'm not going to mount the Monterey one first, the OpenCore one first. Make sure. And then set the type to other. Then on system, you want to go to machine, you want to go to Q35. And the BIOS to UEFI. And also untick pre-enroll keys, otherwise your installation will not proceed. And also tick QEMU agent. When you've done that, we're ready to go onto disks. So we're going to click on that, and then select the bus as VirtIO. Then select where you want to store the disk, and I'm going to give it a size of 120 gigabytes. So you could keep IO thread ticked if you want to, and I'm going to click discard 2. Also set the cache to write back unsafe for best performance. Then if we go to CPU, I'm going to set 4 cores for mine because I only have 8 threads available in this system, and set the type to host. Then for memory, we're going to select a minimum of 4 gigabytes of RAM, which is in megabytes. So I'm going to select 8192, which is 8 gigabytes of RAM. But yours can be lower or higher. I do recommend doing the installation of 4 gigabytes of RAM and then moving up first, but I know what I'm doing, so I'm going to select 8 gigabytes. Then on network, we're going to select the model as VMware VMXNet 3 and untick firewall. Then click next and then finish. So that's creating the virtual machine. Now we need to do some configuration, so let's do that. So to configure, we want to click on our virtual machine, and we want to go to the hardware section. Then we're going to add a CD DVD drive, and then select where your Monterey ISO is and select it, making sure that the IDE is on 0. Then click add. Then we're going to need to edit some configuration files, which I will pull up on screen now. So if you're using Intel, you copy this command. If you're using AMD, copy this command. But I'm using Intel, so I'm going to copy this. And then we want to go back to Proxmox and go onto the node and click on shell. This will open up a live shell, and you can see we're using GNU Linux or Debian. So what we're going to do is do nano/etc pve qemu server 1000.conf, remembering that 1000 is our VM ID, but if it's different, replace that. If we press on enter, we're first going to change the media equals CD-ROM to cache equals unsafe. This converts the CD images into virtual hard drives, which is how we make it work. Don't ask how that works, I've just done some experimentation. Then we want to click paste, and I've pasted it right at the bottom of the file. And then do Ctrl X, Y, enter, and then we're nearly ready to boot. Just hold on though, we've got to do one more option. So if we click back into our virtual machine, go to options, we want to set the boot order to first boot from the OpenCore ISO, then the Monterey, and then the disk. And we're going to disable net booting because we're not using it for this installation. Once you've done that, we're ready to go in console. So I'm going to full screen, and we're going to press escape. I don't know why I just went out of full screen then, but then go to device manager or VMF platform configuration and set the resolution to 1920 by 1080. Once you've done that, press escape, Y, escape again, and then go to reset. We then should see the Proxmox loader again, but this time we should see the UEFI shell on OpenCore. Now this is not what usually happens, and you might consider this bad, but no, we actually want to be in the UEFI shell. So I'm going to press enter and then enter again and type in fs0 : system library core services boot.efi. Also on the UK keyboard you have to press Alt-GR and then the asterisk key, or some of you might know it as the hashtag key. I don't know why you need to do this, but I went through a pain, an arm and a leg to find this out. So I know a lot of you have asked that in emails, so I thought I'd mention it in the video. But now you can see we can see an Apple logo and it's looking good. So let's wait for the loading to commence. So we should see a screen like this, which is brilliant. So we're in a macOS installer environment, and it might look familiar to you. So if we go to disk utility, click continue, and then we're going to click the view option up here and click show all devices. You'll then see an Apple Inc. VirtIO block media. We want to erase this, format it as APFS and give it a name, so I'm going to call this macOS. Click on erase and wait for it to erase. You might notice that it's quite laggy. This is because GPU pass-through isn't enabled, and it will be until we enable GPU pass-through. But I've just closed that now and I'm clicking on install macOS Monterey. So the installer will proceed. So we're going to show later on GPU pass-through. So I'm going to click continue, and the installer will be slow because of this too. So you might get the rainbow wheel of death sometimes, but don't worry, it'll just take a while to load. Also, I'm running this off a SMB share, the ISO, so that might be why it's taking a bit longer for me too. So make sure you read them. I'm just going to agree twice and select the macOS disk that I formatted, which is a virtual disk. We want to click continue, and then we'll get the timer. So it says about 18 minutes left, but really it'll be about an hour. So it says 18 minutes, but this is 18 minutes on this stage, which does lie because it's more like half an hour on this page. Then we'll reboot and we will get the Apple logo too, which will say about 30 minutes. So call it an hour. So get a drink, sit back, relax, watch some YouTube, TV, whatever, until we get back to the setup screen. So at some point you should see this screen. We just want to press enter, and then we will get another progress bar. You can see that this time it will be a lot longer. So it took about 30 minutes for me, but we're going to end up waiting about 28 minutes again. As you can see, about 29 minutes remaining. So again, we're going to wait for that. So when we reboot the final time, you'll see that it just says macOS. So we're just going to press enter. Then we should be booted into the initial setup screen. So you can see we're on the initial setup screen. We're just going to go through it like a normal Mac, and I'll meet you on the desktop. Just make sure to skip Apple ID setup, as we can do that later. So you can see I'm on the Monterey desktop. So we're now going to install OpenCode Configurator on this Mac machine, on the virtual machine. So to do that, we're going to open up Safari and navigate to OpenCode Configurator, the Mackie 100s projects website. We're going to set all the cookies, and we're going to scroll down. It's not the best of layouted websites, but we can find the download. Also, all the links will be down in the description to save you all this hassle. We want to click download, allow, and now we are ready to start moving our EFI folder. So we're going to click the little magnifying glass to show it in the Finder window. Right click, open, and we're now ready to mount our EFI folder and move it over to the main disk. So now we're just going to click open and go to the tools at the top and click mount EFI. Then we're going to mount the EFI 0 partition. It will ask for a password to enter that, and then click open partition. You'll see an EFI folder. We're going to just copy this to the desktop. I'm going to paste it, and as you can see, it's copied. So now we can unmount the one from the virtual hard disk and mount the one of the macOS installation, bearing in mind that it could take a while. So let's mount the other partition, and whilst we're at it, we're going to copy it from the desktop and open up the new macOS partition that should be empty and click paste item. Once everything's pasted, we're going to double click into OpenCore or OC, open up the config.plist, go to the MISC section, untick the show picker, and also set the platform info. If we scroll down, we're going to set it to iMac Pro 1.1, which you will see right here. Keep scrolling down, here Mac Pro 1.1. Then we're going to go File, Save, and we're going to shut down the virtual machine, not restart, shut down. Untick Reopen Windows and click Shut Down. So we're then going to exit out of full screen and head to the hardware section of the virtual machine, and we're going to detach both the IDE 0 and the IDE 2 drives. So then we're just left with the Virteo Medium. We're then going to do a test to make sure that the VM boots without us having to input to it. So this should override the boot selection menu, making it for quicker boot ups and sort of a headless boot. And as you can see, it is doing so. So once they've booted up, I'm going to shut it down again, because now we're going to get onto GPU pass-through. So you can see I've shut down the virtual machine again. We're going to go to hardware this time, add, and then PCI device. Then we're going to select our correct PCI device, and then go to all functions, tick that, making sure to leave primary GPU and PCIe Express unticked. If you haven't enabled IOMMU, I will leave the commands down below. You basically need to edit your default grub file with the following depending on your platform. So by default, quiet will just be here. but you just add the rest if you're on Intel, and I'll put the ones down below for AMD too. But once we've done that, if we boot up the virtual machine again with the GPU plugged in, you'll see that it won't work straight away. This is because we haven't configured it as yet. So let's wait for it to boot again. So all we need to do is click login now. So just enter my password. We're going to have to install something called OpenCore Legacy Patcher. So we're opening up Safari to do this. You can see that the performance isn't that great, but we're going to go to OpenCore Legacy Patcher, which will be a Dotania link. So just type that into Google, accept all the stuff, and go to the OpenCore Legacy Patcher website. Click on the Getting Started page and click Run the installer. We're going to then go to the releases, scroll down to the assets part, and go to the latest version. So I've done that. We're going to click download, click allow, and we're going to wait for that to download. So let's wait for that. So all we're going to do is open up Finder, head to our downloads, and open up the OpenCore Patcher. Now, once it's open, it's going to verify with Apple using Gatekeeper to make sure that it's secure. It won't find it fully secure as it's been opened from the internet, but we're just going to click open. So then all we need to do is click post install root patch, and you can see NVIDIA Kepler shows up. So we're going to click start root patching, and then it wants to relaunch as root, so I'm going to click yes, and we're going to enter our password. Then you'll see it'll relaunch, and just ignore the update. So let's wait for it to do its thing. At some point it will rebuild the kernel cache that could appear like it's frozen, but don't worry, it just takes some time. So you can see it says reboot, but I'm going to click ignore and actually shut down because I want to capture on camera the first boot using the GPU. Now this will be through an external monitor, but the video will play it right now. So I am powering on the virtual machine now, and hopefully we should see something at a display. So this is just a VGA monitor that I use as my second monitor. I do plan on getting a dual monitor set up soon, but I'm just struggling for funds at the moment. But if you'd like to support that, the donations link is on my website and in the description. But now we're going to see if it shows up. So we've got a signal detected, so let's see if it shows up. So we've got the Monterey background and what looks like the login page. You won't be able to see anything as yet on the login page because sometimes it doesn't correctly mirror the display. So to fix that, all we want to do is connect a USB, which is done by clicking add USB device, and all you need is a USB keyboard. So I'm going to connect mine and reboot the machine, and I'll be here when it's rebooted. So for the USB device, I'm just using this USB keyboard and mouse just to set it up initially, but once I've done this once I shouldn't need to do it again, and it's fairly easy to set up. So I'm going to enter the password headlessly because I don't know what I'm typing, but soon I've just entered the password, so soon we should see the macOS menu bar. So all I did was drag my mouse from the left hand side of the screen, and now we're just going to open up system preferences on the actual monitor. So obviously it'll ask me to update to Ventura, but I'm going to skip through that because Monterey is the latest supported using my new way. You can find alternatives on the internet, but I'm not 100% sure whether they work. So you want to hold the Alt key on Windows and drag over the two monitors, or you can just right click and click mirror. Once we do that, we should obviously get the whole screen mirrored, which means we've fully set up macOS. Now we're going to set up our keyboard, which is done, and we are ready to start running some benchmarks. So let's get into it. So we're going to go to the Geekbench website and download Geekbench 5. So just typing that in now. It's actually 6 now, so we're going to download Geekbench 6. Obviously we're going to download it for macOS, so I'm going to do that. If I scroll down, you can see I click allow, and now we're just going to wait for that to download. It could take a while, so I'm just going to wait for that, and you can see that it minimizes and maximizes, fully accelerated now, and it doesn't just freeze on the screen. So let's wait for that. So you can see it's now finished, so we're going to actually start running that. So I'm going to right click open. This sort of bypasses the security checks by Apple, but it still does verify it because it's annoying. But we're going to click open and accept all the license agreements. I don't have a license key, so I'm going to click later. But we're going to be doing the compute check today. We're also going to do the metal benchmark, and select our GPU and click run compute benchmark. Let's do it. So as you can see, we have a result. So we got a 1587 score, which is decent for this GPU. I think so anyways. So you can see I did a CPU benchmark as well, and I got 600 single core and 1977 multi-core. Now this is on the i7-2600, so obviously it's not that great, but that's all I can afford in my budget at the moment, so I hope you appreciate that. Obviously you'll get much better scores than me, but I allocated 4 of the 8 threads on this CPU. Anyway, thanks ever so much for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed. Any questions, please comment down below, or if you need more help and you want more of a one-to-one talk, we can arrange a Zoom meeting, or we can email back to forth. Anyways, thanks for watching this video. Give it a like if you enjoyed. Goodbye.